Okay, so you have us all in rare form today.
Okay, all right. We're live now. Okay.
All right, stay focused.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, it's to you.
Hey everyone, hi, my name is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I am here with my Chief Operating Officer, Christopher Johnson, and my good friend, I call him my brother, we're such close friends, Elonzo Coleman. Elonzo is near and dear to my heart. We talk every day at 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes you see us talking, and we're so similar. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. Today, we're going to talk about some cloud computing things. We'll at some point get into some AWS versus Azure versus Google, where the market's going. We'll talk a little bit about hybrid clouds and multi-clouds, and we'll get a little raw here because, we want to have fun today. We want to show reality. We have to be professionals most of the time, but sometimes we just want to get the pure reality of the world. And that's why we're here in our fun show. We have one fun show per week. So I hope you're here. I hope you have a great time. Please invite some friends. In the chat box, type #CloudHire to let us know that you're here. It's kind of my thing. I like knowing everybody's there. I got 2 cloud hired people today, which makes me excited. I got one from a student this morning that said they were cloud hired. And another one just said, hey, Mike, I had a job, but I got promoted to a new job where I'm now managing 70 people. And the last person I spoke to a few minutes ago was one of my first students in England that is now already being promoted inside of his first year as a senior architect. So I'm all kinds of happy today. So we're giggling, we're laughing, we're having fun. Chris, I know you're going to interview or interrogate us with some questions. I'm not really sure which one yet. So let's have some fun with it, everybody. Chris, it's over to you.
If Yassine already called us out with our delay. We might have been in a heated conversation. Just hashing out how the show was going to go for you guys. So I'm popping in some of these comments here, but yeah, thank you for that introduction, Mike. We needed to get on the right page here, and and I'll go ahead and let everybody know Elonzo has been I think he's probably been up all night. If you haven't been paying attention to the weather here, Texas had a pretty rough night last night, so he's a little exhausted.
Oh my gosh.
So we'll like Mike said, we're going to talk about one of the big topics right now we're going to talk about in a little bit is the competition between AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. And there's some other people in the competition, but those are the top 3 to be the go-to cloud service provider. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I wanted to start it off on a little bit lighter fare. Interrogation is a little tough. I don't feel like I interrogate you guys, but that after the 10 minutes before this call, it might be an interrogation. So let's get started. There's for those that might not be as familiar with each of us, this question is not applicable to me in any way, shape, or form because I am not a technical guy. I am a business operations guy. So I'm going to pose this question to Mike and Elonzo, and I'll start off with Mike. And I'll ask the question a couple of different ways. To make sure we get to make sure that we get the right understanding. So, Mike, if you would tell us what's something that you like about the cloud and what the cloud has to offer or can offer, or just tell us something that you like about the cloud.
Absolutely, Chris. There's some things that I absolutely love about the cloud. And I'm sure Chris will ask me the downsides of the cloud. So I want to let you know that the cloud is most likely worth it in 90% of cases, even though the downsides really are serious. But the upsides of the cloud, specifically auto-scaling and agility. I have to say that when I saw auto-scaling for the first time, the ability to add capacity as needed Wow. That was the whole driver behind the cloud. And I'm going to tell you right now that 80% of the customers that I know, auto scaling is the only reason they're going to the cloud. The second thing that I really like about the cloud is the agility of it. Say, I can build someone a beautiful cloud, a Nutanix cloud, an Openstack cloud. I mean, a beautiful, elegant cloud. And this cloud will outperform a public cloud provider every day of the week. But, with AWS or Azure or Google, I need a virtual machine. I just click 3 buttons and it's done. If I've got capacity in my OpenStack or Nutanix cloud in my private data center, then yeah, sure, I can do the same thing. But the reality is I'm going to run out of capacity in my data center, and Amazon or Azure or Google, they assume that 1,000,001 more customers are coming each day. So they've got lots of capacity. So I really like that about the cloud provider too. What also is good is for your less sophisticated customers, your customers with less technology needs, the cloud is much simpler and you don't need as level of sophisticated people. You can get rid of half of your CCIEs like me because you don't have the complicated routing that you're doing anymore. Of course, you lose a lot of function with that too, but you don't have the complicated network team. You have less security people because you're dealing with virtual appliances as opposed to physical things. And the agility to back up and restore to a cloud is amazing. And the ability to do disaster recovery in the cloud is amazing. And that's where I really love the cloud. It's the agility, the scalability, and the auto scaling that makes the cloud, in my mind, worth it. And there's plenty of reasons, things that I don't like as much about the cloud, but these things are the reason that 90% of customers should go to the cloud.
All right, and you're right. I'll come back to you on the flip side of that coin here in just a second. So we'll go to Elonzo, and Elonzo, if you'll share with us what is what's something that you like about the cloud.
Well, I don't want to sound like a record echoing Mike, but I do love the versatility. I love the ability to spin things up, shut them down. I like the incremental costs. Like, say, for instance, anything in the physical data center, you have to try to ascertain what your spending is, what your growth is over a particular period of time. And you have to really go through a lot of numbers. You have to figure out what your spending is, your budget is for all these racks of storage and racks of computers. That stuff is super expensive. So trying to be able to fundamentally get the budget up, go through all the constraints, all the hoops and whatnot with leadership to try to get that thing going. You don't have to do that in the cloud. You have, like, say, for instance, EC2s, you have your on demand, you have your intelligent tiering with like storage. These type of examples, it's like you only have to pay for what you want to pay versus being in the data center. It's like, okay, if you have all this millions of dollars in technology, you have an understanding that you are going to have this stuff in usage over a period of time. Say, for instance, COVID hits, you have a certain market share of hotels or party promotion, and you're doing certain parties or physical events where everybody's face to face. And you no longer need that storage. You no longer need that compute. You no longer need any of it. You're stuck with it basically until either you're somehow able to sell it off at reduced cost, or somehow the market goes back up and you're able to recoup any of that expenditure that you already went forward. So it's really a dangerous thing that you have to do financially, because you have to be very careful about the money that you spend over the course of time and making sure that you hit that mark and be able to justify all that cost versus, say, for instance, AWS with the pay as you go or Azure pay as you go, and you just have to pay for what you want. So that's what I really like about it the most.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I kind of like the pay as you go. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's simple and elegant, but sometimes it's 3 times the price. Give you an example. For our cloud that we're running here, we're running 10 servers with 24 cores, minimum per server, and each server has 128 gigs of RAM. On AWS, each server is about $1,000 per month. I bought 10 servers for $10,000, and I'll be able to get them for 3 years. So AWS wanted basically $370,000. I spent 10 grand, and I'll have the same cloud for the next few years. Now, why did it work for me? I have the network already here. I'm a CCIE, so I don't need to hire networking people. I had expensive firewalls from Cisco that was given to me for testing. I have an expensive switched and routed network in my house, so I didn't have to buy that. But if I did, we'd start evaluating the cost that might be much closer. But the key is, with the cloud, we pay far more for access of use, but we don't need to buy as much stuff. So it might be cheaper in the long run, but that's an either or. But like anything else, whenever you rent versus buy, there's a business case and a financial analysis that needs to be on there. Sometimes it's cheaper to buy. Sometimes it's cheaper to rent. Sometimes it's cheaper to mix them. And that's what we need to do as architects. We need to be good at creating those financial models for our customers.
Yes, definitely. And, I'm, like I said, I'm a business operations kind of guy, and I'll take every opportunity I can to point out the benefits to the business here. We're talking about our setup as a scenario that directly impacts our ability to be able to offer the product that we do at the price point that we do. Yeah. So we chose the solution that best suited us for our customers, which is something that we talk about in our programs. That's ultimately what it always boils down to, is what's best for your customer.
Right.
So sorry, I always like to, I like to tie things back together.
No.
I'm glad you did, but it all comes down, what is in the best interest of the customer? Otherwise, there's no point in doing any technology design ever.
But
Exactly.
also keep in mind is that what's best for the customer is also, it ties into how can you meet those needs of the customer with your operations. All of it ties in. If you don't have enough, you can't meet the needs. If you have too much and you're spending too much compute, too much storage or whatever, and you're spending too much on cost and not enough on delivery, it could hurt as well. So it has to be a good balance of both.
Exactly. Yeah. So I told you I was going to come back to you, Mike, about your how should I put this? What you don't necessarily like about the cloud as much as you do the traditional environments.
Yeah, and Chris, it's a good point. Remember, I love the cloud, but there's a few things that I think are better in the data center. We have much more security in the data center, and I'll talk about it. We have much more security. We can create far more performance in our data center than we can in the cloud. And we have much more knowledge and trust about what goes on in our system. So let's talk with performance. Let's start with disk performance. So any of us can go to Best Buy and buy an NVMe drive from Samsung, a 980 Pro, costs about $100, and it'll give us about 1 million IOPS. Now we go to the cloud and we get a provision IOPS volume, and it gives us 64K max. So we need to put like 15 of them in RAID 0 just to equal a $100 drive at Best Buy. So on the cloud now we pay $5,000 a month to equal a $100 drive at Best Buy. I don't think that's a great solution. So now we've got 15 drives in RAID 0, and we need another 15 more in RAID 0 to have a RAID 10 environment. And now look what we just achieved to try and get to that. Yeah. Now, having said that, most customers don't need this. So if it doesn't matter, the cloud's better. So the case is, but if it's a financial application that's latency sensitive where nanoseconds matter, then there's that. So there's the performance. Now, also the network performance. If in my data center, I want to put 100 gig links in between my switches, I can. And I can put 10 of them if I wanted to. And in the data center, I can guarantee that if every one of my users at all time uses the network, their data is guaranteed to get through. I could if I chose to. Now in the cloud, it's a shared network. If all their customers use the network at the same time, none of the customers' traffic will go through, because typically service providers oversubscribe 10-1, which means under normal circumstances, a tenth of Amazon's or Azure's customers are using the systems at full capacity. Life works good, but if everybody needed to use it at the same time, like in the event of worm or virus or bad news, it could really wreak havoc on the cloud provider because they're not scaled for that. And we saw this with our internet service providers in the beginning of COVID, where everybody started working from home and all of a sudden our internet came down to a crawl. There's that. The second part is security. In my data center or any data center, I can hire Navy SEALs that are armed to be fit to do physical security. I can make sure that I have the best firewalls in the world, the best IDS IPS systems in the world. I can run QoS on my network. I can run 802.1x authentication, so if the wrong server is plugged in there. I can rate limit bad traffic if there's a worm or a virus. I can't do any of this on the cloud. Why? Because it's a shared network. I don't have that kind of control. Now, Chris, What percentage of customers need this? Maybe 5%. So like I said, 90% of customers are better on the cloud. But what kind of projects did I work on my career? The things that have never been done by anybody in the past that need maximum performance for banking. So for me, there's still some edge in the data center. And as you can see, data center spending, by the way, went up 3.6% last year. So it's not like data centers are going away. So the key is, I love the cloud. It's agile, but the security of the cloud is not there and is not as good. It's still good, but what's the other risk of the cloud? Okay, now I've got a company, it's called My Cat Cindy, and it has photos of beautiful cats like Cindy. Now, if you break into my website, My Cat Cindy, and you take pictures of My Cat Cindy down, I'm going to be sad, but nobody dies. It's no big deal. And nobody's going to try and hack me to get my Cindy photos. But if you hack into Azure or AWS, what do you get? Every single one of their customers, all of them. And when people got into Azure's database last year, 3,300 customers were compromised. And all of their information. And look, accidents happen. There's some Israeli guys at Nightspend that post every single day on the new way they figured out how to break into the AWS cloud. It's not that the AWS cloud isn't good. It's great. It's just that it's a shared medium and it's a high value target. So hack me, get my stuff. Hack Azure, get all of their customers. So it's a high value target. So now you've got less physical security because you're not in control. You have less things that you can do on the network because it's a shared network and it wouldn't work on a shared network. And now you're in the biggest high value target in the world. Now, if you architect your systems properly on the cloud and you don't use any of those cloud native services and you get these industrial grade things, it's still better. And we can get close to data center security, but there's certain things we can do in the data center we just can't do in the cloud. So again, love the cloud, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Like if I needed to hire some Israelis to hack into my system, they could do it.
Yeah.
Now, they can probably hack into pretty much anything. I know when I trained and did some security training down there, I met with some really great hackers. But the point being is just keep that in the back of your mind that you have less control in the cloud than you do the data center. But the cloud's agile, and for 90% of customers, they should be migrating to the cloud.
Alonzo, do you have anything to add to that? Any other aspects that you would consider not to be?
Well, that's a tough act to follow, but yeah, I mean, you think about your physical data center, you think about your cloud, you think about maybe hybrid, but you're missing out on. How can I say this? I support where Mike is coming from, and it's so important to have that security because you think about like say for instance me. Years ago, I had a trip to Miami and my stuff was in the cloud for a financial institution. And I got a notice that someone was using my financial information while I was gone. And I had to go through the whole process of having my card canceled and having to Uber because I didn't have a car because I was on vacation. I didn't need it where I was at the particular time. Pulling out physical cash, canceling my card, going through all this, and having to wait for a new card 5 to 7 days later. You guys know the drill on how that happens.
Yep.
So with that being said, it's like you think about where would it have been if it was more secure? What needed to be in place to keep that security? And was there any drop in the ball about that? Is there the process? What was it? And you think about how more secure it would have been when you think about your financials in a data center as it would be in the cloud, where it's not as resilient, it's not as fortified as it would be with any of the strong firewalls that you normally would have had in place with any physical thing. So it's kind of like you said, it circles back around to what are the benefits. But when you think about who's, like you said, you circle around, Cindy the cat got tons of great photos in the website. However, when you're thinking about financials, when you're thinking about people's health is at stake, you think about HIPAA, you think about PCI DSS, you think about credit card security. These things could bankrupt or even potentially kill someone if any of this information is held at ransom. What is this? A year and a half ago, I reside in Texas. There was ransomware for a particular pipeline that happened. And at the end of the day, because they didn't fortify what they needed to have done, they had to they had to pay $3 or $4 million in ransom money for that. So companies have to really think about not only what it's good for at this particular time with that security, but where are you going to be in 3 years, 5 years? What is your strategy? What is your overall plan when it comes to market growth, financials? All that stuff comes into play.
And I completely agree with you. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying the cloud is not secure.
Right.
Look, the cloud is secure.
But
it's
not
just
as secure as
we have more controls in the data center.
Right.
So if we go from security, if we had on a scale of 10 out of 10, if we can get to 9.5 on the cloud, but we can get to 10 in our data center. Is that practical for 99% of the population? No. Is it for the world's biggest bank? Yeah. Is it for a hospital system where if our links or the cloud goes down, someone dies? Yeah, that may need to be think hybrid or multi-cloud. We can always architect around the weaknesses and build our strengths. So every system has weaknesses. The data center has its share of weaknesses too. It's just that all architecture is about choosing the biggest benefits and minimizing the weaknesses. Each cloud has their strengths and weaknesses. Each data center has its strengths and weaknesses, and every technology from a monolith to a 3-tier to microservices all have their strengths and weaknesses. It's just using the right tool at the right time.
Right. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And being able to understand how your market base and who you're trying to protect, what could happen if that happened? Say for instance, financials. Let's just start there. Your brand's destroyed. The trust is destroyed. And any type of potential restitution that you have to have for any guarantees based on your network and any other type of compliance laws or fines that you have to pay in the interim because of all that stuff. So it's a whole lot goes into the understanding of what the positives and the pros and cons are with that architecture and how you're going to utilize it.
Yeah, and as long as you design it right, I think the cloud's still elegant. It's just it's the way some people are teaching how to design it, which sets people up for security nightmares, single points of failure, and all kinds of crazy things. But done right, again, the agility is worth it for 90+% of the customers.
Right, it is true. And how many times have we seen, whether it's mobile service or whatever, there's, and then also let's think about this, Mike. Your architecture, your security is only, not only, let's take the physicality of the data center out of play, but your security is only as secure as the people who secure it. Do they know what to do? Do they know how to lock this down? Are you, because there's so many, I've heard the horror stories with peers or whatever, and they leave this thing wide open. I even know a couple of certified ethical hackers who were charged to do something without any of the team knowing, and you might as well have left the garage door, back door, front door, just open the entire side of the house open for all these bad actors, to take and play with all of your personal information. So
it's that, but it's not the people securing, but it's also the people that work for it. I went into a bank a long time ago, and this was a high security bank. I mean, you have no idea. They were telling me about how great their systems were. And I'd been there a lot. And I noticed the receptionist had a new haircut. And she looked extra nice. She was wearing a special dress, had a special manicure, pedicure. You could see her special shoes. She was all decked out for some special date that evening. And I said, your systems are secure, right? Yeah. I said, hi, Angela. How are you today? And she says, good, Mike. How are you? I said, oh, my God. Your hairstyle, you did something, your shoes, you look really great. Do you have a special day plan? Hi, Mike. And we started talking for 5 minutes. And I said, I need to go fix this guy's computer. He called me. He's not there. Can you let me back? Poof, took me right to the desk. And then I've done the same thing with guys. So it's not like, but the point is guys, girls, that's social engineering. It's up to the people. How many emails do we each get each day? People actually send things to my students saying, hi, I'm Mike Gibbs. Please buy Apple gift cards for me and I'll reimburse you later. Now, my students are all security trained, so they're like, that's not Mike Gibbs and that's not my phone number. Right. But the plain thing is that the people can be a weakness. So to get it together, we got to do a lot.
We do. It's just overall, anyone who is in front of the command line, behind the command line,
yep.
the overall understanding of what security is needs to happen. I mean, there's tons of companies, they'll line up a lot of the compliancy videos. I'm sure everybody has done that before. You got to go through dozens of these things before your manager yells at you for not getting it done at a certain date. But there just needs to be an overall general understanding of how, or any peripherals on how you're touching the command line or how you get access to any of the stuff with the security. You got to know what you're doing. You got to understand, like you said, Mike, you got to know what you know and you got to know what you don't know.
You
have to commit, and you have to commit to learning that, or at least communicating to just, I'm not touching the board. So go get someone who's qualified to do it,
Yeah. So this is
Mike,
where I'm
going to do this. No, not at all. It's not architecture. Mike didn't have to do this. That's not architecture either. Find somebody.
Yeah. All right. So this is where I step in. We could have us an entire workshop on security. So thank you guys for sharing your things that you like and things that you're concerned about. Let's put it that way. Things that you like and things that you're concerned about with the cloud. So since I am the master of ceremonies, the MC, the coordinator, the moderator, the referee, the umpire, I am in charge of what gets puts on the screen today. And today is a very special birthday.
Oh, it's Sonny's birthday?
It is Sonny's birthday.
Oh, this is
beautiful.
So everyone is familiar with Cindy the cat. Cindy is Mike's cat, and Sonny is my cat. So Sonny the cat is 11 years old today. So since I'm in charge, she gets a birthday.
She gets the front. She gets full.
No wonder I get so many messages about why do you keep showing your cat online?
Well, at least now it's not going to be your cat. It's my cat. Yeah, I'm in charge. It's my cat. This is what happens when you put me in charge. I put pictures of my cat.
I'll go back to one thing. I saw somebody put in the chat box. They need to learn stuff before they come to us for training. They should come to us so we can teach them.
Yes.
You don't need to learn stuff to be trained. We could train you from day one to get hired. If you come to us after doing all the training, it's still going to take us the same amount of time, because half of becoming an architect is the leadership, emotional intelligence, communication skills, network, data center technology, and we have to teach that, because otherwise we'd just be doing certification, and that wouldn't get anybody hired. That's why we do what we do. But Chris, I'm sure we've got more questions and more discussions, so let's go back to the tech content so we keep people engaged.
As you see here, Miss Lehman Jamin said it right when you were saying it. No, you don't. You learn along the way, and you're taught by the best.
Yeah.
So not just Mike, you're taught by plenty of people. So there's an entire community here for you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still happy birthday, Sonny banner. Let me get that out of the way. Sorry, I love my cat just as much as Mike loves his.
I do love my cat.
So this is more of a question for Elonzo. I'll start off with Elonzo. Now I'm going to ask this last question, and then we'll get into the big topic of the day, which again is going to be talking about the competition between AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud to be the head of the cloud service providers. But I wanted to hear from Elonzo, because we hear from Mike a lot about this. But Elonzo, if you would share with us a little bit about how you got to the cloud. Because obviously not everybody starts at the cloud unless you're Mike, and then Mike starts at the cloud. even if it's the cloud in like 1996. So I thought I would ask you, Elonzo, to share with us how you got to the cloud. And I may interrupt you and ask you some other questions along the way, but let's share that with the people in the community.
Okay, well, long time ago in a career far, far away, I used to be a graphic designer. I worked on that creative side of the brain. I thought it was my passion, and it was for a while. Okay, it was a lot of fun to be able to create. I had a chance to work in commercials, a lot of cereal campaigns, even had a chance to touch on a few movies here and there. However, it just got to a point where the market became more saturated. There was more of an influx of a lot of people who not only did web and design like I did, but it started to be more of a global instead of a country, just a CONUS, interior countrywide thing. So as you continue, as you can understand, over time, there's more of an influx. It became saturated, that market. And then you compound the complications of trying to compete with different creatives and professionals from different countries who are willing to do it for a fraction of the cost. You got some problems because now you're having to be more innovative. You have to maybe be more competitive, which means I might be able to compete with these international professionals. However, the bottom line is I'm not going to be able to live. I'm not going to be able to move financially forward in this particular arena. So, and then on top of that, you think about all the think tank sessions, and believe me, being in an ad agency, there is no 9 to 5. You got deadlines. You got to create this whole campaign, all for perhaps leadership to shoot it down and say, take it all the way back to formula, and you still have to keep your deadline. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. And over time, and I spent a tremendous amount of time in that industry, but I realized, I'm getting burned out. 2, it was just highly competitive. 3, the money, the financials was just really getting bogged down because of the disparagement in pay and people willing to do a whole lot for very little. So I decided to figure out, okay, where's the next step? What am I going to do? Because with marketing, it's fluff. It's great to have in a company. However, marketing is the last to know, first to go. If you have to keep a lean company and you have to get down to the basics and just keep operational costs at a minimum, you're going to have to cut some fat. And believe me, marketing is definitely some of the fattiest stuff there because it creates such a strong brand. But once it's established and you really need to mellow down and not focus on that stuff, folks are starting to get laid off. And so I've seen that happen with a lot of people. So with that being said, I said, I need to find something else. I need to find something more stable. I didn't want to do funeral homes. That's going to be consistent. Didn't want to do taxes because both of those, you're going to need somebody to do something in those industries. So I started to review a lot of what tech was. And someone had asked me, what do you want to do? I want to do IT. And they're like, they had to laugh at me because he said, do you understand IT is this broad base of sections, of facets, of different things. It's like saying, I want to be an animal. Which animal? Are you trying to be mammal, reptile? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do in the water? Or are you trying to do on land? It was just such a broad base of interest, but I didn't know where to look. So the first thing I thought about was DevOps. And I didn't know what DevOps was. I started to do the research. I started to incorporate what DevOps was because the first, in between, and let me just go back a little bit, is that in between my marketing career, I spent some time doing project management. Grabbed my PMP certification, started doing Agile, started doing a lot of those SDLC, software delivery lifecycle, doing those things. And so the next step in that was going to be IT. So I said, DevOps, that might be a great opportunity. However, I didn't realize what DevOps was and the more I started to do it, the more I realized I got to do code. I got to get on the command line. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to understand the DevOps lifecycle. I got to understand so much of it before I even have a chance to even enjoy this in a market that's already established because there's tons of DevOps professionals all over the world. And I likened it to the marketing piece is that, okay, well, there's going to be tons of people doing the same thing in a market that's become increasingly saturated. How am I going to make an impression in this place where people have already had a head start by careers worth of years? So I thought about what I just thought about what I wanted to do. So that's how I came to understand more about what the cloud was. I started jumping on AWS, tinkered around in the sandbox, took classes here and there, And then that it had more of what I was interested in, because that mitigating factor with DevOps is that they don't socialize with the customer.
No.
And oftentimes, a lot of engineers, they don't want to. They want to get on a command line and they want to be left alone. And I respect that, but that wasn't for me, because I love to socialize. I love to understand what the client wants, be able to break down the barriers of being a stranger to becoming a trusted colleague and a trusted resource. And that's fun for me, to be able to establish those links and bonds, create those solutions, and provide that justification, because what I said has come to fruition financially for the company. It has come to fruition when it comes to their increasing resources, new clients, new established presence within their industry. And I always love to see the look on their faces that says, "You were right, Elonzo. I like you. I like what you did." And that trust is built there through that interaction. And that's how I can tie it back to marketing, because you have to deal with the clients. You have to deal with client-facing situations, whether they're good, bad, happy, or sad. You got to talk to them. You got to hype them up. You got to earn their trust, and you got to be able to tell them, like, this is the right move. And if you don't believe it, then let's go and crunch some numbers. Let's go and look at the architecture. And this is the benchmarking that we use to justify why the decision that I made is the right one for you. So all in all, that's how I started from that point to this point, and I haven't looked back since.
Sounds great.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Like I said, we don't get to hear from you as much on your background, so it's obviously that'll change now that you'll be joining us every Tuesday. But I'm glad that you got to share that with us. Mike, I'm not going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, because we all know I used to practice internal medicine before I went to the cloud.
Yeah,
that's all kinds of funny.
You don't get that question, Mike.
Not at all. No, I don't know where you came
my
from.
story's too wacky.
If you want that story, sign up for our Thursday webinar at the link in the chat box and in the
you
description.
will find out how I left medicine and became the lead architect at the world's largest ISP within 6 months, and how you can too.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, first 1 second, I just got off the phone right before this call with one of our people in the UK. He graduated our program, meaning he got hired about 6 months ago. And apparently he's being brought up to now the lead architect for the whole country inside of his first year. So we're excited about that. That
awesome.
goes from building all the skills, not just the tech skills.
And that does not count the other two people that we heard from today.
That's true. We had 2 more people. One person got promoted that works at the largest technology company in the world, and she's going to be managing 70 people.
Yes.
And the other person just got their first cloud architect today. So that's 3 big newses in one day. Usually get 1 person that gets hired per day. But if we get any more than 2, I take that as a big party day. And I'll have a red stripe beer tonight, even though I don't drink alcohol. But for 2 in a day, or let alone 3, yeah, I will.
That's a trifecta. Yeah, I will drink your share if you don't want to.
Sounds good. Let's get together. I will teach a yoga class. We can listen to Ziggy Marley singing Beach in Hawaii, where he talks about Ashtanga yoga, and have some red stripe beers together. That sounds like a perfect night to me.
All right, and I'll bring the cat. So
bring the cat.
All right. So So like I said, I'm not going to ask you about how you got to the cloud, Mike. So we'll move on to the big discussion. And I'm not even sure where to begin with this one. So I'll kind of put it out there, and I'll probably let Mike kind of steer this conversation, just because Mike's got the knowledge and the experience to be able to steer this conversation. But the competition between I guess what we would call the big 3 cloud service providers, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. I don't know any specifics. I'm way too busy, but I do know that I've seen a few headlines in passing on my phone. You know how it pops up the headlines. Occasionally, I've seen a couple in the past week about how Azure apparently has overtaken AWS in some, I don't know if in overall metrics or in certain metrics or certain markets or certain demographics, but it seems like Azure is starting to overtake AWS or catch up with AWS, which is something that we've been talking about for the past year, that we see that Azure is going to be, we see Azure being the market leader, within a few years. That just the nature of the way that their business operates lends itself to being more business friendly.
And we can talk about that. They actually, by revenue, are by far the biggest cloud computing provider, and they have been for over a year. But, and I'll pick this up on Chris, because this is a bit of a tricky thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I brought it to you.
So bring it to me. So right now we've got 3 major providers. Now, if we were talking 2 years ago, what we were talking is Google that had like 3%, 4%, and was losing money. We had the Azure cloud, which was pretty good. And we had this mammoth AWS cloud. They were kind of the first to it. They're the biggest, at least they were. Now, what we've seen is Azure, from a cloud market share perspective, still has AWS has 32%. And Azure has about 21%. But here's the thing. At the beginning of last year, Azure had 9%, and they went up to about 20, 21% in 1 year. But AWS's market share did not go up at all. And Google's market share went up. And there were lots of things, but let's talk about the differences. So when we talk about Microsoft has smart cloud services. What are smart cloud services? All the good stuff Microsoft does in its cloud. Office 365, which is not really cloud computing, and some of their other industrial grade apps. So Microsoft bundles that. So we don't really know exactly how much revenue. What we're seeing is the biggest customers right now are mostly on AWS, and the smaller customers are migrating more towards Azure. We can also see the trends that almost no one is willing to do single cloud now. Now, about a year ago, it was big. Right now, we're down to 3% of customers that are willing to take the risk to go single cloud. And AWS has been, as far as I'm concerned, shooting themselves in the foot and killing their market share by their recent behaviors. AWS is a great cloud. It is a great cloud, but AWS made four things in the past year, which has caused an instant shift. About a year and a half ago, there was a social media app company on AWS. And they didn't agree with the company's mission. They kicked them off, and the company was instantly, it was $1 billion company that was basically brought to zero. Now, I will tell you this. I'm not going to say if I agree with the company, disagree with the company. It's irrelevant. As soon as that occurred, I got at least 50 calls, and at least 10 CEOs reached out to me, and they said, Mike, are we safe on AWS? I said, what do you mean? They said, AWS just put a company out of business. Should we go back to the data center? And I said, don't go back to the data center. I said, but what did we talk about 2 years ago? You said, go multi-cloud. Go multi-cloud. You'll get more agility, more redundancy, better everything. So they all shifted multi-cloud. So there was that, which you started to see caused the uptick in Azure and Google. And then there were the outages. Now, let's be fair. Everybody has outages. Everyone. Microsoft had outages last year. Google had outages last year, and AWS had 4 big ones. But when Microsoft got hacked and Cosmos database was hacked, what did they say? They told everybody in an instant press release, we were hacked. Here's what you need to do to fix it. Instantly. Azure got hit with the world's largest DDoS attack last year and somehow survived a 3.47 terabit per second DDoS attack. And guess what they did as soon as they were hit with it? They told everybody. Google had a big outage last year. One of their network engineers made a BGP misconfiguration error. It happens. Happened to Facebook too. When Google came back down and they identified the root cause, what did they tell everybody? We had a BGP misconfiguration error. How many of Google's customers were comfortable with that? All of them. How many customers would be comfortable with Microsoft saying we got hacked? All of them. None of us are happy, but we got it. Here's what the Amazon outages. We won't talk about some of them, but we'll talk about this one. Big, nasty global outage affects the whole world. Not just the region, and they say, we had an impaired network. No, the thing is, I called about 1,000 network architects that I know, and none of them knows what an impaired network is. Here's what an impaired network is. It's not working right. So can you build your business? If I was a doctor and a patient came into me and I said, you're sick, and they said, what's wrong with me? And I said, you're sick. Would they be happy? No. If I said you had a heart attack and I'm going to treat you, they, okay, yes, doctor. You've got pharyngitis. I'm going to give you amoxicillin and you'll be better. Yes, doctor. You're sick. You just have to be sick. No. So that really scared a lot of customers, because when that happened, I got calls from everybody saying, Mike, can we trust these people? Did they get hacked? And I said, I don't know if they got hacked. Hacking would be more likely to cause this kind of problem, but I don't know what happened and I still don't know. Now, they had like 4 outages inside of 2 weeks. Now, when you have a big outage, guess what happens? It damages other systems in your system. And they often had outages. So it's not abnormal to have one big outage and have multiple outages shortly after. Again, nothing wrong. Everybody has it, all of them. And then they have another outage which breaks down the whole country, and they talk about a power failure in a data center. Well, I don't know of a single customer that believed them. And here's why. Professional data centers don't have power outages. Now, mom and pop data centers, like the kind I have in my house, yeah, they go power outages, but big data centers typically have 2 power companies coming in. They have 2 sets of generators. They have backup generators. They have batteries. So power data centers don't go down. And AWS told the industry it did. So when you start hearing things that are not believable, what do? You speculate. You say, AWS must have been hacked 4 times. Were they hacked? I have no idea. It got so bad that last week, there was an internet outage about a week ago. People are calling me from all over the world. Hey, Mike, is AWS down? Is AWS down? I'm like, they're like, the dashboard says all green, but we know that doesn't mean anything. They're down and it says they're up. Down detector, we don't trust Amazon. Are they down? And I said, look, let's look. Google's customers are down too. Is Amazon and Google down? Let's see if any internet service providers. You looked at CenturyLink and they had problems. And you look at others, it was an internet routing issue. But the point is, when you don't give people answers that make them comfortable, they speculate. Speculation means scaredness and fear. Where does fear go? Fear goes to security. What's security? Multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. So even though what you're really talking about, so we don't know what happened with Amazon, but what we did see is they made a couple of business decisions, right or wrong. Their competition's market share doubled inside of 12 months after these decisions. And it looks like everything is going Azure, 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 Azure. So why do I like Azure? Look, I still love the AWS cloud. I think it's awesome. And I really would like to know what happened in these outages. I wish they would just tell us. Something we could believe in. And I'd put all my trust in Amazon. I really would, because they're great at what they do. But I can't trust answers that are not real. I can't trust an answer that's just so basic. It doesn't make sense. And if I was at Cisco and Cisco said, what happened? And I said, you had an impaired network. Not only would I be fired, my replacement would thank me for the promotion. I'd be fired in a second for saying something like that, because it's basically, you know, when you hear a politician speak and you ask them one question and they babble for 10 minutes and didn't answer it, that was the answer. And when the politicians, we get sick, we feel like we need a shower. When we hear that, and not other politicians, just some do it. Well, when we hear that from business people, we feel sick. Like, so I think that's what really wanted. But again, the AWS cloud is a good cloud. I just wish we knew. But what happened, you know, those kind of outages, single points of failures, people started seeing in multiple clouds. Now, why does everybody like Microsoft? Well, it's ubiquitous, right? I mean, I don't use a Windows desktop and haven't in 20 years. I tried one for 3 months. It didn't work for me. But what's the average computer? It's Windows, right? Microsoft's in everybody's home. People play games or something called an Xbox. I've seen it in my friend's house. They use that. Microsoft, right? There's some of this virtual reality stuff. Microsoft is in it. The desktops are there and they make games. Everybody knows Microsoft. They're part of everybody's life, but Microsoft got something that one of the best business units I've ever seen. So when I worked at Cisco, we had a very special business unit called the Internet Business Solutions Group. And Legend had it. Here's what happened. Legend had it. Our CEO, John Chambers, talked to Jack Welch, the CEO of GE, and said, I can save you money with technology. And the Legend said that Jack Welch said, John, prove it to me. So according to the Legend, John Chambers went and hired a bunch of executives from GE and formed a business unit called the Internet Business Solutions Group, and then used the GE people to build the business case back to GE, how technology would improve their business. Now, Cisco went and started this for finance. They hired finance pros. They hired They hired medical professionals like me. Cisco did it, IBM did it, and Microsoft did it. They have huge teams of industry experts. You go to Microsoft, there'll be 10 doctors on a team and 10 nurses on a team that are designing healthcare solutions. Pretty cool. And Microsoft has a business solutions unit that can walk into your business, speak to your CEO, CFO, ask the right questions, do some management consulting, create new business architectures that improve the business, and then build the tech architecture at the same time that can make that business more agile, earn more. Now, all the providers have them, but Microsoft Business Solutions Group is good, really good, one of the best in the world. So assets like that, assets like being in every single house in America, make me think that Azure is going to be the number one. But also, Google's getting some market share. And I think Google's going to pick up a lot of the multi-cloud. Now, I view a cloud as a hosted data center. And the reason is, what do we have in our data center? Servers, storage, load balancers, firewalls, VPN, concentrators, IDS, IPS. What do we have in the cloud? Servers, storage, firewalls, load balancers. It's all the same stuff. And then when you do this stuff in the data center, you own it. When you do it in the cloud, you pay per minute. Which is cheaper? I don't know. But now really think about the clouds and what they can do. Let's think about their strengths. Who is the number one algorithm maker in the world? We use it every single day in our life.
Google.
Google. You want to figure something out? Where do you go? Do you go to Google? So if I was going to use any pre-made machine learning libraries, I'd go to Google. That's their business.
Yeah. It's not just the number one, it's the number two too.
Yeah,
YouTube.
Number one and number two, YouTube.
YouTube's the second biggest.
So if I'm going to go design something that needs artificial intelligence, it's not going to be on anybody other than Google.
Yeah, very true.
If I'm going to use pre-made libraries, now if I'm going to be in my data center, I might call NVIDIA and say, give me your best system.
And you know something, Mike, when you think about how much people are willing to spend for someone who understands Google Cloud, the initial salary is it's definitely a top salary as someone who will probably have started in AWS or Microsoft.
You know, it really is. And, but really, you know what? When it really comes down to it, you can earn the same salary in any one of these companies.
It's true.
It's all related to your emotional intelligence and leadership skills.
True. That is true.
I earned more than modern cloud architects did 20 years ago as a network architect. Why? Because I like to speak to CEOs and they like talking to me. If I was more technical, I would have earned less. I was very technical. I actually had to pretend not to be.
Yeah. So thank you for getting that started.
This is all speculation.
About the computation. Oh yeah, of course, it's all speculation, but informed speculation. Knowledge based on experience. Speculation.
And mind you, when we're being asked this question, we are a contributor to a Journal of Talk Markets, which is a Wall Street publication. So a lot of people come to us for their advice on what do we see in the future of these trends. So, but this is our educated, speculative view of what we see based upon what we're hearing from CEOs, what we're hearing from hiring managers, what we're seeing in the industry, and what we're seeing market share-wise and statistics-wise.
Right. Did you anything that you want to add into that, Elonzo, before I ask some more questions related to the big three?
Well, I couldn't. Mike said it. You think about, and he hit on a lot of key points, is the positioning of AWS. And I'm not knocking AWS because that was the first cloud provider that I decided to jump into. And if anyone understands AWS, while you're studying to understand one facet of what service AWS offers, they're probably pumping out about 16 other services or versions of said services that you're studying for or trying to understand. So they have a diverse array of different services, and maybe some some of the services that they have are overlaid on top of some new services. So you're going to have, to me, it seems like a bit of some redundancy there, but it's the trust thing. Mike, let's circle back around to it. We know. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if that was a end pause or a thought.
Oh, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it just circles right back around to security. It circles right back around to having a solid, secure cloud. And as you know, there's no real such thing as that. You know, like you said, who's building your stuff up? Who's securing it? If they're lax or incapable or don't know what they don't know and start jumping on things they don't understand and misconfigure something. You break all this stuff. You're letting loose the floodgates and you're letting them all in. But it comes back to the branding. It comes back to the trust factor. It's like, can I trust you with my stuff? Or are you just telling me what I want to hear because you want to financially save face in your positioning with the market? And I need to know what, and as a business owner, someone would need to understand what's going to be the best, not the most popular for my business.
Yeah,
absolutely. And one thing, we will address certain questions coming in afterwards.
I was about to.
There's a few very dangerous questions, like should I get a bunch of associates on the way to a professional? First, I'm going to tell you never to do that, and we'll tell you later why. But there's a couple of dangerous certification questions that are going to keep people from building a cloud computing career. And I will address that in the end, even if Elonzo can't stay, because I don't want anybody getting stuck.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to point out. I was going to point out that I saw the questions. I was going to save them for the end, but I saw that dangerous one come in, and I was like, okay.
I'm going to hang out just a little bit because I want to make sure that if I can support Mike and Chris and any of the questioning, I'm not going anywhere.
But Chris, I want to add one more thing about why I think Azure is going to make it. It'd be the biggest. AWS did something, and I understand what they did. AWS has one of the best marketing departments I've ever seen. And it's very hard to sell old technology as new. The drug companies do it. You take two drugs that are 40 years old, you mix them together and you call it Januvia, or you make up a funny name and then it's $400, $500, it's brand new and patent. And here's the thing. A virtual machine is a virtual machine, and we've had virtual machines now for 2 decades. Now, if you call a virtual machine like Azure does, everybody knows what it is. AWS wanted to make their stuff sound cool. Elastic Compute Cloud. Seriously? So what happens is when you speak to CIOs about why they don't go to the cloud, they say they don't have people that understand it. And Azure uses terms that everybody understands. Hey, wait, this is my virtual machine. This is my load balancer. This is a firewall.
And because that's exactly what I was going to bring up. I was going to bring up Mike, bringing back to me. I'm a business guy. The CIO ultimately has to sell to people like me, whether it's the operations officer or the finance officer or the executive officer. They're going to have, they have to sell to people that don't know and don't understand. And we're inherently already more comfortable with Microsoft. Just because it's Microsoft. Just like that's just how it is. I mean, we know who Google is, we know who the AWS is, we know who Amazon is. But if you come into a business meeting and you mention Microsoft, everybody's like, let me listen. Microsoft, it's almost like it's in the realm of GE and Cisco, and it's so when you come in and you start off with Microsoft, it's already easier for people like me to accept and to get on board with. And then you add the factor that you just mentioned about being able, like, I can understand what a virtual machine is. Very easy to explain because the name is very simple to begin with. And so when you take a minute to explain what a virtual machine is, I get it. It's understandable.
Right.
But then you try to explain a
Elastic Compute Cloud instance.
Right, exactly. I'm like, what the, like, is it a rubber band? Is it, so what?
Or Amazon Simple Storage Solution? Tell me it's object storage. Okay, got it. You've got block storage. I know what that is too. You need a next generation firewall, Micah. Got it. WAF? What the heck is this thing? Web application firewall. Does it do layer 3, 4? Nope. Okay, trash.
Right, so, exactly. Going back to that, like, even I know what a Cisco firewall is. Like, I know what a Cisco, because I've had to buy them for myself as a personal. Like, I've had to buy security devices for myself.
Or when you worked in a hotel, I'm sure there was a Cisco firewall hanging on the wall, along with the Cisco router and switch.
You tell me a Cisco device, I'm like, all right, I know what a Cisco device is. So, anyway, I'm getting a little off topic here, but I think it goes into what you're talking about Azure being the one to bet on, I guess you would call it.
It's all those little things. People know what it is. It's user friendly. They don't have any fancy names. People trust them. You trust Microsoft. Yeah, we got hacked. Okay. So what? Everybody gets hacked. It's just inevitable.
Right.
Hey, we got hacked, but we survived this. Oh, pretty cool. Biggest DDoS attack in history. Sure. Thank you for letting us know. Thank you for being honest and open and transparent with us.
Yep.
I want to know what systems I'm designing. I want to know what they work, how they work, the performance. How else can I design them otherwise?
Yeah. So I want to take this maybe in a different direction here. So, and feel free to bring up any others than AWS, Azure, and Google. I know that there's other platforms out there.
Yeah, they're all the
same. But is there any platform that might be more suitable for certain types of operations? Again, layman business guy here, trying to figure out how to ask a technical question. Or would they all be the same?
For the most part, they're really all the same. Any cloud is just they're all the same. You go there, you build a data center, you rack your servers, you rack your storage area networks, you usually plug them in via fiber channel. You put your firewalls where they need to be, your load balancers in front of your servers, your storage. It's a data center. When the cloud, and all of our students build the cloud, because how else can you be a cloud architect if you've never designed and built your own cloud? Mm-hmm. So when our students design their own cloud, what they do is they set up the Linux server, which makes up the control plane of the cloud. Then they set up the control plane, the data plane, and they build the cloud. So anybody that's ever built a cloud knows they're all the same. It's just standard data center stuff. But which is easier to work with, Windows or Linux? Well, for the uninitiated, Windows. Microsoft, super user-friendly. Why do small businesses have Windows servers and big businesses don't? It goes back. Expensive Linux administrator or Linux engineer. Microsoft certified systems engineer, much less paid. Why? Because it's simple. So Microsoft is friendlier. So I'd say small businesses are more inclined to go to Azure. Businesses where they don't have as many people that are trained are much more likely to go to Azure because it's not cryptic. AWS right now does have an edge on the biggest, largest scale deployments. Google has the best machine learning algorithms if you're going to pre-made. Now, granted, custom is always better than pre-made. Custom is always better than a managed service. You have more control. But if you don't have a team of developers and you're looking to take advantage of pre-built things, you're going to be better off for machine learning in Google. Alibaba, I think it's going to be a huge cloud at some point. Huge, huge, huge. Probably not too big in the US, the UK, or Canada, but I see that being really huge. I think we're also going to see
Oracle, Mike.
Oracle's an interesting one. I see Oracle more as an industrial cloud. And what I mean by that is an industrial cloud is built for business that's got specific applications specifically for business. Oracle bought a company called Cerner. Cerner was one of the largest medical electronic health record companies in the world. I consulted to Cerner. I remember meeting with their CEO, their CTO, their CIO, their COO. They had 1,300 medical professionals on staff at Cerner the last time I visited them. 1,300 physicians and nurses, in addition to that huge thing. Now, Oracle bought this electronic health record. So now, if you're dealing with a healthcare customer, Oracle owns the software that half of the hospitals are using, and they now own a cloud. Oracle could be a very good industrial cloud for healthcare. Okay. But still, I would never, ever, ever use a single cloud for healthcare, because if you do and that closes down, patients will die. If the network goes down, patients will die. Mm-hmm. So for the hospital, I would either do a hybrid cloud, like an Openstack or a Nutanix cloud in the data center, and connect that to the Oracle cloud, or I would do the Oracle cloud, the Azure cloud, Oracle cloud, the AWS cloud, Oracle cloud, the Google cloud. But I would never do anything that matters on that single cloud. It's just too risky. You get a network failure, the whole cloud's down. The cloud gets hacked, the whole cloud's down. You get a control plane failure, the whole cloud's down. I don't want anybody dying on my watch from me making bad mistakes, so I will never do single cloud.
It just goes to show you, house is burning. You want one way in or one way in and out, or you want multiple exits so that you can resolve the situation and remediate the issues.
Now, if you go to Azure, they say do multi-cloud, it's a good idea. If you go to Oracle, they say do multi-cloud, it's a good idea. AWS just published a paper in an article in, I think it was Information Week, that said, hey, you should never go multi-cloud because it makes it hard to use DynamoDB and this proprietary service and this proprietary service. And when I read that, I said, guess what? We never use those proprietary services anyway, and you shouldn't use them because they cause vendor lock-in. So your whole argument of not protecting yourself from availability just to make it simple to use proprietary services that are going to cause you problems later doesn't hold weight with any real architect anywhere.
Yeah, you're forcing trust, forcing me to trust you by understanding that, okay, I'm the only one that you need. But I'm like, okay, if you're trying to do that hard sell and whatnot, that in itself is going to create mistrust.
Yes.
Well, even Google does is an evangelist for multi-cloud.
Yeah, all the cloud providers are. AWS is the only one that says we can do it ourselves. Of course, we are down hard 4 times last year, and we had global outages for hours. But we're good. Trust us.
As they say,
Azure won't say trust us. Azure will say, hey, use a second cloud. Google will say, hey, we're good, but we're not that good. Use a second cloud. We're not crazy. We don't want your business dying.
Right.
Yeah.
And establishing and saying that expressing that, I wouldn't say it's a vulnerability. It's more of a reality that it will and it can happen. Creates an understanding like, okay, you're not Superman. You're not, you're not invincible, and create this illusion and whatnot. It's like I feel more that cloud service provider is more. I'm able to work with them because they understand their limitations, and they're willing to say this is how you remediate it before it becomes an issue, instead of saying this is the end all to be all. We might even have some stuff in the marketplace, but all in all, you don't need to go anywhere else, which we know that is untrue.
Yeah, and it's crazy. When I worked at Cisco, if I tried to say, hey, build your WAN on AT&T, I would have been fired and my replacement would have thanked me. If I was at Juniper Networks and I wasn't at Juniper Networks and I tried that, I'd been fired in the first day and my replacement would thank me. And when I worked at Riverstone Networks, we were like, okay, which 3 service providers could we use? Because trust me, things are going to break. Yeah. So if we don't have a massive Google outage, AWS outage, and Azure outage this year, I'll assume it's a miracle. And not because they're not great. They are amazing.
Yeah.
They're incredible. They're the world's best network operators in the world, but tech breaks.
Yeah.
The best anybody can ever get to is 5 nines. And that's after spending about $1 billion on it and having about the best people in the world and the best change control.
Yeah.
When you're that big as a cloud provider, the best thing you can say it is you've got 100 people in a medical school class. The graduate person is number 1. Do you know what it's called? Doctor. The person at the bottom of the class that's the worst person that probably kills people. Do you know what his or her name is? You know what they're called when they graduate? Doctor. Yeah. So when you go to these tech companies, it's going to be really rare to find competent people. I've interviewed 5,000 people and hired 10.
Think about the percentage of that,
Now, I know a lot of people that know programming this and this and this and this and hobbyist knowledge of a lot of things, but not enough to do the job of anything. That I can find in a heartbeat, but I can't find knowledge. Competency, that is really rare. When you see it, not only you're hired, you're paid, you're promoted, and your career's like this. Because everybody else is a jack of all trades. Be and a master of none. That's great if you're an enthusiast. It's great if you're in the woods surviving, but it's really bad if you're trying to propose $1 billion architecture to your customer.
Right.
So you kind of started to segue to some of the topics related to some of the questions that we started to get. So before we switch over to taking in some of these questions, is there anything else that either one of you wanted to add into the discussion about the clouds, the cloud services competition? Or do you think we've talked enough about that one for this show?
I don't think we've discussed OpenStack and Nutanix enough.
Yeah, I was curious about that. And I didn't know if we wanted to talk about them on this one or if we wanted to do that one on another call or on another show where we have enough time. We can talk. We can do both.
Let's do it. Let's introduce it now, and then let's do a full show on Nutanix and OpenStack Cloud.
Sounds good. Well, I won't give you a full show, but I'll make it the highlight of the show.
Okay.
Little sneak peek.
Yeah, because I was really gonna ask you about that. Because we're talking about these cloud service providers, but not all the big companies use them.
No,
to build their clouds. They build their own clouds.
Yeah.
Most highly successful companies that really matter, have a hybrid cloud. And why do they have a hybrid cloud? Let's assume you're a hospital. I've got an AT&T and an NTT connection to the hospital, to AWS. I'm in 2 regions and 2 availability zones, and Amazon's down. Now all of a sudden I've got a patient that's crashing and I can't find their medical record. Somebody dies. Can't do that. Now this hospital, let's say, had a data center or didn't, whatever. What if I built a data center and put the cloud software on this data center? So now I can do auto scaling on my hardware. I can move my stuff around. I have the agility, the speed of the cloud. And as when I configure additional systems on my own Nutanix cloud, it automatically provisions Google, Azure, or AWS. And it moves my stuff wherever it needs to be. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So let's say you take a bank. The bank has $1 billion of technology infrastructure. 500 million of it is modern. Scrap the other 500 million, turn that into a big, beautiful cloud, which has all the same features and functions of the Amazon cloud. But guess what? It's attached to our building. So what do we think about latency? Got a 1,000-mile direct connection, latency. Well, now we got our stuff in our building. Millisecond latency. It's faster. It'll perform better. So we can take our infrastructure where companies have spent so much money, build our own cloud, and then connect that to one or two clouds. Now we've got higher availability, higher performance, and we can maximize all the hardware we bought. We can expand to the cloud as needed. I almost took a senior leadership position at Nutanix about 1.5 years ago because I thought their model was so good. They have a hypervisor. Their control plane for that cloud is the most simple and elegant I've ever seen. It is absolutely beautiful, and I have a tremendous amount of friends that are there. IBM, by comparison, owns OpenStack, which is the Red Hat version. This is an enormously popular cloud. You name a big company, American Express, Verizon, American Airlines, they have their own OpenStack cloud, and it is excellent. So, that's the basis of your hybrid clouds. We'll talk about it much more one day. But let me tell you, now we're really talking about the good stuff. Now we're talking about how do we mingle and architect it together. AWS is great. Azure is great. Google's great. But, the stuff they cover on certification, that's not even a 10% of the ecosystem we deal with as architects. We're about solving customer problems. So we need all the tech, all the business process improvement, and everything we need to make the tech work for our people, not our people work for the tech. That's the difference.
I like that.
All right. That's a good primer, I guess you would call it, for the because there's an entire world of discussion I have about OpenStack and Nutanix.
Yeah, huge, great topic. Love those two products.
I think that would definitely be a great topic for the next show. Let's see here. So, Elonzo, before we start bringing in any questions, anything that you want to add on to the hit?
No, I'm looking forward to OpenStack and Nutanix. I think that's going to be a really interesting premise, and also I'm also thinking about who. I know HPE is trying to jump into the cloud space a little bit, Mike. Maybe that's something we might want to discuss, down the line, and how some of these new entries into the cloud space, or fairly new, where they might be able to take this. I know there's no way they'll get any market share anytime soon, but it'd still be kind of interesting to see where they might go and who their what their tier of competitors are.
Yeah. So, well, before we move into the questions, while we're talking about topics for future shows, if you have any topics that you want to suggest to us, make sure to share those with us. You can email them at admin@gocloudcareers.net, and we'll add that into our magic sorting ball. I don't know. We'll add that into our list of topics that we go over for each show each week. I got to get used to show instead of call, because I'm used to all our class calls and all our onboarding calls, and now I got to switch to show. So we had 2 calls today. Now I got to, Tuesdays, busy days. So, all right. So Corey is excited to get into the program. He's ready to build his own cloud.
Oh, you're going to have a blast, Corey.
Yeah,
you'll really enjoy that. Even though we architects are system designers and not hands-on, It will give you a knowledge of the cloud. It will also be something you can tell the hiring managers, and it's going to give you something that's going to make you stand on your resume from everybody else. When everybody else can tell the world, hey, I set up an EC2 and an S3 bucket, and every hiring manager doesn't care, you can say, I built a cloud, and they'll love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get into some of the questions that we saw over here in the chat box here. So this will be the first question. I'll let you handle that one, Mike. I got some answers, but I'm pretty sure it's similar to yours.
I'm going to answer this very clearly. Certifications do not make cloud architects. I'm going to say this again. Certifications never get cloud architects hired. I'm going to say this a third time. Cloud architect certifications are 100% irrelevant, but you still need one to get hired. And here's the thing. Well, that's covered in the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. The name of a service and how to configure it. How much configuration do architects do? Zero. They design, so it's 100% irrelevant. Now, having said that, it does teach you the names. And what does it teach you the names of? All these proprietary services, such as SQS, Kinesis, DynamoDB. In a multi-cloud environment, can you use Kinesis? No, you swap it out with Apache Kafka. Would you use DynamoDB in a multi-cloud? Never. You'd swap it out with MongoDB. So it teaches you all these great certifications and all these proprietary things that you won't be using for any of your critical customers. So none of that matters. Now, Sarkar, what gets people hired? Network and data center knowledge, because if you know what a virtual machine is in the network and the data center, then you know what on all the clouds. If you understand object storage, it doesn't matter if you're in the Oracle cloud, the AWS cloud, the Cisco cloud, the Dell cloud, the Palo Alto cloud, the Google cloud. It's all the same. If you understand how DNS works, it doesn't matter if it's Cloudflare, F5, Route 53, Azure DNS. It's all the same. So the point is, if you know BGP, it's the same on Cisco routers, Juniper routers, AWS, Microsoft. It's all the same. So I'm concerned that you know the network and the data center and that you know how to design the cloud thing, because that's what architects do. Then on the certification list, just to let you know, the average certification can raise your salary by $10,000. Training in leadership skills, emotional intelligence, executive presence, communication skills will add 6 figures to your salary every year. Something a certification can't do. So do I tell my people to get certified? Yes, I tell them to get one professional cloud certification. I don't care if it's Azure or AWS. It's irrelevant to me. It just shows you've gone through the pedic to go do it. So you've got one thing, and I tell my people to get something from the industry, like a CCNP or a CISSP, something that's big and deep so that you know something. Other than that, I'd rather see you get an MBA, do leadership training. The certification training is not your friend as an architect. As a cloud admin, where all you do is configure stuff, yes. As an architect, we still need it, but it only gets us an interview. It won't get us hired, and nobody cares. I wish it wasn't the case.
And to further elaborate on that, the flip side of that question is, so the original question is, why don't you promote vendor-neutral cloud certification programs? The alternative question could be, why do you promote AWS and Azure? And the reason you do that is because those are the most widely recognized and accepted cloud service provider certifications. So
and we just need the biggest.
We want you as the potential candidate to be the most widely recognized and accepted candidate. We want. So that's why the flip side of that question. Am I correct, Mike?
That's completely, because you've got like these CompTIA Cloud Plus, which no customer wants to hire. And it's not that it's wrong. It's a good certification, but for cloud architects, they're more looking at leadership skills, emotional intelligence, sales. They're not looking at this. So, you know, there's the opportunity cost of spending your time. You can only spend it in one place. So you spend it on something that adds $100,000 to your salary each year, or do you send it to something that does nothing? Yep. So I try to focus on the high value targets.
Yeah. And so a follow-up question to that is from Albi Queso. This is the one that caught mine and your attention, Mike.
Yeah, this is the most dangerous thing I've ever seen. If you want to become an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, do the Associate Professional and nothing else. I know there's some really bad certification providers that are trying to milk you for your money, and they're going to have you do SysOps and DevOps and developer. If you want to be an architect, you won't be doing any of that. There's somebody else's career. If you get certifications in someone else's career, you won't be hired. And if you do, you'll be hired for less. Here's why. An architect is a digital transformation specialist. This is assuming you want to be an architect. If you want to be something else, I can give you different guidance. The more certifications you get, the less you look like a digital transformation specialist and the more you look like an engineer. So at least for architects, I got to tell you this: when I have people that have these SysOps and DevOps certifications on their resume and they can't get hired, which is usually most of them, after I train them, I make them take those certifications off of their resume, and instantly they're hired. I have to work that hard to remove the unnecessary certifications. So Albie, what we're trying to do is we're trying to tell a story about you on your resume. We need to show your business, your leadership, your capabilities, your knowledge to help solve customer problems. The more these things that are related, so that means you need business acumen to understand the CEO, because you're going to start with the CEO. The CEO doesn't care about SysOps. That's maintenance people. They sure don't want a DevOps automation person on their architecture team. And they sure don't want a developer on their architecture team. So determine what you want to do, Albie. Tell me what your career is and we can build you a plan, but don't just get random certifications that will not help you.
It will hurt
No,
you.
not at all. And it'll drain your wallet. Or it may not drain your wallet, but it keeps you from filling up your wallet.
Yeah,
the longer you spend getting these 10 different certifications, let's just say hypothetically it takes you a month to prepare
each one.
Get each certification. That's 10 months. If you're wanting to be a cloud architect and you're just wanting to get a cloud architect job that pays the average pay of $600 a day, that's $12,000 a month, I think. Is that,
Think about opportunity costs.
Yeah. So that's $120,000 over the course of 10 months if you're trying to get 10 certifications.
Right.
Now, if you're only trying to get 5 certifications, that's only $60,000 of lost income. But now, hey, $60,000 of lost income, that's a lot of freaking money. Yeah. I mean, that's
Chris.
Think about
tell them what would happen if they studied ROI modeling, executive communication, CXO relevancy, executive presentation.
Well, then they'd be able to communicate to me and get paid a lot more.
Yes. Yeah. So that wouldn't be an opportunity cost wasted their time, because it would double or triple their salary.
Exactly. So I mean, you spend a couple of months. Let's say you spend that same 5 months on, instead of on 5 certifications, you spend that 5 months on an associate and a professional and all the emotional intelligence. You just spent 5 months to get, instead of $120,000 a year job, you're getting $180,000, $190,000, starting off at the bottom.
Yes, starting off at the bottom.
Depending if you've got, take me for example, 12 years of business experience behind me, I wouldn't be starting off at $180,000, $190,000.
No, I'd be starting at $250,000 or $350,000.
Yeah. Exactly. I'd be right. Same with someone that's been in the accounting field. If you've been an accountant, somebody that's been in a sales role, somebody that's been in a higher education role. If you've been in any role where you've already have experience and interpersonal experience, or any other role that can bring experience other than just your certification, no matter what that experience is, you're going to start off higher than the average.
Very true.
And that investment and time and the emotional intelligence is going to pay off a lot more than just those certifications. Again, that's if you want to be a cloud architect.
Yeah.
If you want to be,
and if you want to be an engineer, there's different things that we would tell you to study that aren't in these certifications that'll get you hired.
Exactly. It would not be right.
And someone had mentioned, when it comes to an architect, Terraform. Terraform is
I was about to get to that one next.
It's like and say for instance, when I was on that very, very brief DevOps path and I started getting into Terraform, I did Terraform because I was getting into the DevOps engineering piece. So now when you think about understanding, we're designing the architecture, we're not building it. So when you think about Terraform and actually getting on the command line, that's something that an architect will not be doing. So that would not behoove anyone to take on that skill if you want to focus on being an architect. You're not going to go east to go west.
Right.
You're not going to put on a firefighter's uniform if you want to be a baker. You have to think about what is related to what and add those links on the chain towards your success. And anything contrary with that will result in wasted time, wasted resources, wasted money, and wasted opportunity costs.
Exactly.
So just, and you heard this from Mike because you had Mike's experience, but I wanted you to hear it from me because I learned from Mike and I come from a very, very different contrasting background. So you can see that it is applicable in real life scenarios.
Yeah, and you're working on the cloud now, but before you had done all that certification stuff, spent a year in it, and then we trained you and taught you how to be a cloud architect, and now you're leading big projects on the cloud.
Yeah, and I know Terraform. I've learned Terraform. Am I using Terraform today? Not at all. Not at all. I have not used it not once. So
And you never will.
you won't. And so take it from me, take it from Mike. Both of us have. I had the experience to learn, unfortunately, and Mike knows already. Don't go for it. Don't go for it, guy. Just focus on all the stuff that is incorporated within the courses, or just understand that if you get the certification, that's great. But the courses and the training to get the certification is just that. It's teaching you how to pass the test. It is not teaching you how to exist, thrive, and maintain in a corporate environment based off of what architecture is focused on.
Yeah.
So that's the mitigating factor that people have to remember.
And the closest I've ever gotten to a Terraform discussion is as follows. Mike, what do you think of Terraform? Well, don't use CloudFormation because it only works with AWS. If your DevOps team has a choice, use something that's multi-vendor. So Terraform would be good for you. That's the farthest discussion an architect will ever have on Terraform.
Yeah.
We won't be coding, none of it. We're designers.
Yeah. So we had a question here. Does Azure architect earn less than an AWS architect?
No. What determines an architect pay is the level of technical competency, their business acumen, communication skills, leadership skills, emotional intelligence, executive presence, and business acumen. You can get a $400,000 architect job working at Azure or AWS or Google if you have those skills. If you don't have those skills, you're going to get paid very little, be at a $120,000 job. We have graduates of our program earning close to $300,000, and we have other new ones coming in at only $120,000. But those people that focus on the leadership skills and take us seriously, they get those high-end jobs. The people that just focus on the tech. Hey, I want to go straight to the labs. Can I do the labs? Can I skip your leadership? Well, you can, but if you get hired, you're going to be paid half. And I don't think you'll get hired.
Yeah. You think about, you're going to get hired as an engineer. You're an actual expense to engineer, to work on the DevOps cycle, to be able to push stuff back and forth through GitHub, Jenkins, all of that, versus you working with clients. You're not only creating solutions, you're generating income for that organization. So you think about, okay, I need somebody. It's because I have to run this thing. I need an engineer. That is still a cost. But if you're an architect, you're going to be client facing. You're going to go through and you're going to be a part of that whole discussion from point A to concept to completion on what these architectural solutions are. You're going to be building those relationships with the customer who has the checkbook. So who do you think is going to have more accessibility to opportunities that far exceed you just being a necessary expense, but an expense nonetheless?
And I've lived that from personal experience in two places. The first time I lived this was in my healthcare career. At one point, I was a nurse. Doctor would come in and yell and scream at me for no reason whatsoever. And I complained about it to nursing management. And they say, Mike, he brought us 42 patients this year. We've made $4 million on him. We love him. Find a way to get along with him. And why? Yeah. Because he was a sales rep. He was bringing money in the hospital. The nurse was an expense. Later, I was a nurse practitioner. I was admitting my patients to the hospital. The nurses said to me, why are you so nice? I said, I'm one of you. I've lived your life. There's no reason for me not to be nice. Why wouldn't I be? But you're allowed to. No, that's not who we are. And then I worked as an engineer, and I was a good engineer. My CCIE number is 7417. I'm not joking, 7417. It was a 2-day exam in those days. I designed half of the world's largest internet service providers network. And then one day I decided I wanted to move up. I asked my manager, and they said, no, you can't. You're an engineer. What did I do? I said, for real? I can't move into architecture because I'm an engineer? And I said, yes. Bought a bunch of Armani suits, didn't know anything, removed all the certifications from my resumes, watched what the sales reps did, and added 6 figures to my salary. Now, I did take a bunch of leadership training, emotional intelligence training along the way, but I pretended not to know. I had to get out of the engineer stereo brand. I was like typecast as a hardcore engineer. I had to work hard to show people I wasn't techie just to be an architect. And then after I became an architect, I got to be techie again, just business techie.
Right. If you talk like an engineer and instead of breaking it down into what the consumer, the client can understand, then that's all they're going to see you as.
Yeah.
All right. So Mina asks about the timings of our classes. So we have classes in our program for Cloud Architect Career Development at 9 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday.
Which is easy to do Pacific time.
4 p.m. Eastern
that's 1 p.m.
on Thursday, and 12 p.m. Eastern on Friday. She says that she works on PST, so it's difficult to do the 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern. What can I do? Do you have weekend live sessions?
Okay,
so I'll let you take that one, Mike.
I'll take this one. Let you know why we pick the sessions that we have. We have a tremendous population in the U.S. I'd say all across the U.S., but for some reason, Texas East is the majority of our concentration. We have a huge concentration in Canada, a huge concentration in the UK, a huge concentration in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. So we picked the times that work best for Europe, the US, the Middle East, and Africa, because that's the majority of our world. So we have two ways you could do this. We record every single class, so you could attend the one live class, and you could attend the recorded class, and you can attend the other classes, and you can pop in for 10, 20 minutes, ask questions, and learn, which is what most people do. Or we have another course, which is identical content. And what we do is we take the course, we record all the live classes, and just give people the live classes, but they can't come to class and they can't ask questions, and we charge half price for that. That's the basic course. But you could come to the live classes. They're 2 hours. We have some people that come in for, literally speaking, 30 minutes at a time, 15 minutes, because they work full time. They ask some questions. They get their questions answered. We answer the questions, and they go back to their job, and then they watch the replay of the class that night. But people can ask us questions live in class. In between classes, they can message us on Slack. So I don't think there's ever a point, Alonzo, you were in our program. Was there ever a time when you were in our program where you didn't have an answer to something? You're muted, Alonzo. Alonzo, you're muted. Alonzo, we can't hear
Works
you.
better if I can take the mute off. So had the kids in the back. So one thing, Mina, what you want to understand is that even though you're not at the optimum time frame or time zone where you could experience the live classes, what you can do is get in the Slack channels. Everyone is there to help. Not only are you going to get an answer, but you're going to get a perspective on what their versions of the answer are pertaining to their pathway on being an architect. So you're going to get a multifaceted experience on how you can get those questions answered and be able, and everyone's always there to help you. So there's not going to be a time like myself where I had a question, I was lost, or I needed some perspective on where people were going with this particular conversation during those videos and not get some sort of understanding and a deep understanding of that. So when you couple the videos with any conversations that you have with Mike, along with some discussions with anybody in the community, you're going to have a well-rounded, multifaceted understanding on any concepts that you struggle with. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thanks for the answer. I'd like to get just another perspective. I mean, I love the interactiveness if we can be there. But even if somebody comes in for part of it or some of it, they still learn. We find ways to make it work. I mean,
yeah, and
three people that got hired or promoted today, usually it's only one, but we're a boutique shop. So, for us to get one each day or two each day, that's a massive number.
Yeah, and the thing about the program is that it's and the people on the YouTube chat they can probably talk about this a little bit. The program, we as a program put on 3 classes a week, but the people in the program, they're doing their own classes and their own calls on the weekends and their own study groups that we don't moderate. I mean,
too.
And they come back to us, but we've got study groups in Africa, study groups in India, study groups in England, study groups in California, study groups in Texas. We've got study groups everywhere. And we love that the students work together. And then when they get questions, they ask us. But it's not just that. We have people after they've been hired that are mentoring others too.
Yeah.
And they're bringing each other. So Joe was with us for a couple of weeks before we found him a senior solution architect job with AWS, and he's mentoring 2 or 3 of the people on this call right now. And we still talk to Joe all the time because we love when our graduates work with our students.
Yeah.
Mina has a couple of follow-up questions here also.
And then let's make sure we answer them.
So I want to be a platform and infrastructure cloud architect.
Well,
what certifications from Azure would help me?
None. Okay, so the Azure Solution Architect Expert will help you. A Cisco Certified Internet Expert would help you, or a Cisco Certified Network Professional will help you. There's no certifications from Azure that will help you become a platform or infrastructure architect. Infrastructure means extreme knowledge of the network, knowledge of routers, knowledge of switches, knowledge of load balancers. That's not covered in certification, except for the Cisco ones or the Juniper ones. Juniper Networks also teaches that. But Cisco would probably be the better one to go to because it's more ubiquitous. The Juniper product is unbelievable. And I know the Juniper product has been my competition my whole life. Know yourself, know your enemy. The Cisco product and the Juniper product are equally good. Some days Juniper's better, some days Cisco's are better. They're equally good. But if somebody's got 80% market share and another company's got 20, if you're going to get a certification, get in the 80. So get a certification from Cisco for that.
And again, that goes back to the question at the beginning, why do we recommend some over others? It's because of exactly what you just said. If this cert is recognized by 80% of the people as being more valuable, then we're going to say, get this one.
And nobody leaves our program without having the knowledge of 3/4 of an infrastructure architect and also 3/4 of a cloud security architect, in addition to be a full-scale cloud architect.
And remember, everyone, when it comes to AWS, Google, Alibaba, Oracle, Azure, any of the cloud service providers, think about this. And Mike said this perfectly, and it stuck with me forever. It's like when you learn how to drive a car, do you have to get a driver's license for each brand and style of car that you happen to purchase throughout your life? Or do you get a broad-based, well understood understanding of how to drive a vehicle, whether it's a truck, a pickup truck, a car, sedan, coupe, or whatever? You learn how to drive. Same thing with this program. You're learning the cloud, and you're going to be able to understand that, have that solid foundation, and apply it to any of those CSPs, cloud service providers out there, because everything, like you said, Mike puts it back, and it circles back around. It's nothing but a virtualized data center and network. Okay, so what's the physical version? Takes you right back to the original fundamentals of what cloud is. And that's going to be the best way for you to learn this.
And I love what Cisco did years ago. When Cisco started their Cisco certification training program, here's what they did. They taught the industry. They didn't teach Cisco. So when I became a CCIE, my next job was working on Wall Street, where we're using extreme network switches. When I configured OSPF on extreme network switches, the commands were different, but the protocol was identical. The algorithm was identical. And then I left there and I went to Comcast and I was working on some Juniper things. Guess what? The commands were different, but the protocols were identical, so the tech was different. And then I joined a company called Riverstone Networks that made switches and routers. Guess what? Their commands were different, but the technology was identical. And then I joined Cisco after that, and guess what? It was the same. So Cisco taught the network. They didn't teach Cisco proprietary stuff. They taught the network. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the cloud providers teach their proprietary stuff, not cloud.
Yeah. So Dasha has a question here. Is the AZ305 Azure Solution Architect Certificate the most valuable for the Azure platform?
What career do you want? The career determines what will be the most valuable certificate. Having said all of that, the certificate is the least important thing in terms of your salary. Your level of communication skills, executive presence, business acumen will easily add 6 figures to your salary if you have that. If you don't have that, you're always going to be fighting to just try and get ahead. So it's not a certification again. And the best certification is based upon what you want to do. If you want to be a DevOps engineer, then the AZ305 is not the right one. If you want to be a system designer on Azure, that's the best we can get. Not great, but it's the best we can get.
And Dasha asks another question here. Once we register for the program, can we repeat forever, or after 4 or 5 months, in order to repeat, will we need to pay again?
Dasha, I want to make this very clear. Graduation for us is when you're hired. I'm going to say this again. It's not when 16 weeks pass. It's not when 30 weeks pass. It is when you are hired. So you attend our program, you will be hired as long as you do the work. So if you need to be in our program a year, great. 12 months, 13 months, I don't care. You stay in the class and you never, ever pay more, because our plan is we get you hired in our program regardless of how. You have to go to Ethiopia for a month? Who cares? Go to Asia for 3 months to visit family member? I don't care. You've got to go to Europe or India? So what? You come back, you put all your time, effort in, and you pass and you get hired. And guess what? We don't ever take the content away from you, ever. And here's why. You're on your new job. You might want to return practice some of the architectures we did in class. Do you know the architectures we do in class often will have thousands of servers, 40,000 remote locations? Some of the architectures are things that people will never, ever get to do in their life. The only reason my students get to learn is because I got to design billion-dollar architectures because I was the lead architect for an entire vertical at Cisco. So our students get it. So no, you'll have access to the content as long as you want. We would never, ever do that to you. It's not fair or right.
Yep, and I think you just answered Femi's question. Also, what is the validity of the program? Will it get dormant if not in use?
No,
it should not. To our knowledge, that's not how our training platform is structured. We've not seen that in any case.
Not only that, but each week we teach live classes, and we keep changing as the technology changes, so it's constantly updated.
Yeah, I think they meant from like their side, like if they don't log in.
Oh, no. We can't do that to people. We want people to have great careers.
Yeah. And of course, if for some reason anyone ever has any issues accessing it, just admin@gocloudcareers.net is the best way to reach us. So, and we try and take care of things because things happen. You never know. Something might happen with access. And we take care of it as quickly as we can. So let's see. Ms. Lamon Jammin asked a question that, in all fairness, I just want to preemptively say that okay.
That's for Elonzo.
Okay. The Miss. In all fairness, I want to save this question if I can for next week. But if y'all feel like y'all want to take it now, we can. I think it would be a great one for another show. So it's for Mike and Elonzo. What has been your experience where you felt stuck in the middle of trying to figure out how to deliver the best client cloud architect, and how did you overcome the hurdle?
That's a good one.
I'll give a quick answer now,
Okay.
and then we should dedicate a show to this.
Yeah.
So Miss Lamon Jammin.
This is a keystone for a show.
You always ask some good questions.
She always does. She's incredibly smart. I know her very well. She's fantastic. Great attitude in every way. But here's the thing. The reason, Miss Lamon Jammin, we're training your leadership skills, your executive communication skills, your emotional intelligence, and your business acumen is for the following reason, and your sales skills for the following reason. When you get a big architecture, you're not going to be able to do it yourself. I'm going to tell you right now, you can't do it yourself. I'm also going to tell you this. There is no one in the world, Miss Lamon Jammin, that will ever be able to design a big architecture themselves, the kind I'm talking about. So what do you need? You need really good leadership skills, and emotional intelligence, communication skills. Because here's the first thing you're going to do, Miss Lamon Jammin. You're going to reach out to the executives in your company and say, I need to borrow 10 architects. I need a cloud security architect, a cloud network architect, a cloud IAM architect, a cloud big data architect, a database architect, an application architect. I also need 15 cloud engineers for a proof of concept for the next 3 months. And if I also need 2 program managers to help me do this proof of concept. So Ms. Lamon Jammin, with those leadership skills and sales skills, you can tell the manager to give it to you. Now, Ms. Lamon Jammin, you finally got the managers just to say, hey, all these people can go work for you. Now they don't work for you. Their manager said they can work for you, but they don't work for you. You can't fire them if they don't do their job. So your ability to sell them into wanting to work, your ability to lead them, and your ability to get them to your goals, again, is there. So when you've got people that need to work on a project for you, you ask them, what are your goals? I want to be a manager. Okay, let me help you become a manager. Let me coach you along the way. So you're buying lots of lunches, you're entertaining clients, you're having lots of dinners in the corporate credit card, and you're getting the people all in a room or a virtual room to design the best solution together. That's why this is not about how tech you can be, because nobody can be the techie. It's about how good you can lead and bring the world's best minds together, and then you're never stuck. So that's what I do. I always bring in a team. I don't think one person is ever good enough. I find a team from all over the world, from different backgrounds. Elonzo's got a graphic background. Elonzo's got called careers. Chris came from the hotel industry and operations. Both of them can show me new ways to live. And that's why I need different people on my team from varieties of backgrounds. But we'll dedicate a whole session to this, guys. Miss Lemon Jamin, it's a great idea.
Yep. Alonzo, you want to throw anything in there, or you want to save it all for the
I don't want to leave me hanging, Miss Lyman Jamin, but I think I want to give you the best response, a full response with the next conversation. So if you want to email me about some small tidbits or something, if I can be of help, I don't want to leave you hanging like that, but I want to definitely leave something for the show next week.
Yep. Sounds good. And somebody asked about our program, the one that was $4.99. Yeah. It's the same program, but you can't attend the live classes in that one. But the live classes get recorded and given to you. So it's the same training. We made the second version for two reasons. There were some people that couldn't attend our classes and didn't want to pay for it, not being able to attend classes. And we do a lot of work in the developing world and wanted to give something that was more palatable to the developing world.
Yeah, so to reiterate what Mike said, is the Cloud Architect Career Development Program at $4.99 and the Cloud Architect Career Development Program at $9.99 are the exact same program, exact same content. Just one has access to live classes, the other one does not. They both have access to recordings of all class calls. So the only thing that the $4.99 does not have is access to take part in the live calls. You have access to the Slack community. You have access to all the training content. You have access to all the assignments. You have access to all the recordings. So just as
and the labs are included in all programs because that's the next question. Obviously, the labs are included all. It's the same thing, but the ability to attend the live classes. Exactly. Nobody gets shortchanged.
Yeah. And then Mina asked about the validity for the 30% promotion. We are doing the 30% for 30 days in celebration of our 1-year anniversary of the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And so that's 30 days from March 15th. So
April 15th.
April 15th, April 14th, whatever, however, I think March has 31, so I think it's April 14th.
And we do a ton of enterprise architecture in here. It's mostly enterprise architecture.
Sakar asked, do you have a quiz bank to test your students' knowledge?
I have my students design live architectures in front of me. I test your real knowledge. I don't test multiple choice questions or things that are invalid, but we also have projects that you have to do, that you have to turn in. So we check your knowledge on things that are real, the things that'll get you hired, as opposed to silly quizzes that are basically just pass an exam. We get you hired. Exactly. And I think there was a second.
To reiterate, we do have, for those that are not in the live classes, we have architecture assignments that you complete and submit to show your knowledge of the design. So we don't have the quizzes, but that's how we test your knowledge and capabilities.
And the second question that I think he asked was, how do we do leadership skills and presentation skills? Well, we dedicated one. So we have 3 classes per week, 2 architecture, 1 leadership. Last Friday, many of the students presented to me. The previous Friday, we had a difficult conversations course. The week before that, I think we had a sales class, but we always do the leadership and business skills 1 day per week. But there's a tremendous amount of training in the program for you to learn that. You'll make videos, you'll present to us, we'll give you feedback. So you're constantly working on your interviews, your negotiation skills, your presentation skills, your writing skills throughout the entire program.
And also remember, I can't remember whose LinkedIn. We went through a review of that, and we provide optimization for how their LinkedIn to increase and decrease and streamline what they wanted to sell about themselves as well.
Yeah, and we did. And we also co-author papers with our students when we can, and co-write books with them and get them involved because it gets them hired.
Yep. So playing catch up here. Obviously, we've been answering some of these as they come in. Dasha, about the labs with the $4.99.
Yeah, there's labs.
We mentioned that as it came in. Yes, the labs are included. You caught this one as it was coming in about the enterprise architecture.
Heavy complexity.
Definitely.
And sometimes our students get enterprise architect jobs, which often pay double cloud architect jobs. So
Yep.
we've had a couple of graduates getting them because we teach so much enterprise architecture. But that's not normal.
Yeah. Douglas responded to Corey saying yes, and also that he puts our feet nicely to the fire in the call.
And that's exactly what I do. I give my students as much as they can, push them right up to the limit, and then help. And that way the people become best very fast.
And Dasha asked about later on if they're happy with the content of the program, could they pay the difference to have live session enabled? Of course.
Of course.
We're very
price. We're not in there.
So if you've already paid
Gilbert asked the question that I want to ask. He asked if he takes our program, we'll be able to pass the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. Gilbert, that was my goal. I could get you to pass that in 2 days. That's nothing. That's not even an intro to cloud computing. We do dedicate 20 hours in our program to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and then we dedicate 480 hours to teach you how to become a cloud architect, because that's so basic. And when our students interview with Amazon and they get hired, they're like, I can't believe these interviews are so basic.
Yeah, and just to point out, he's asking about the AWS exams. We provide so much of that content for free outside of our program.
Yeah,
like that's how
you could pass that from our free materials with our free ebook and our free videos on YouTube.
It's so important to us that people get at least that we put it out there for free. Like you need that.
We need it. And we do it as so basic that's not even in competition with our work, that we just give it to everybody for free. It's so basic compared to what we're going to do.
I'll go ahead and just kind of put a spoiler out there that, we might have a comparative product for Azure out there soon.
Completely free very soon.
Completely free.
We may have an Azure course and do a free Azure boot camp. We may write a free Azure book.
Yeah.
We've got free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate courses and books, 2 of them. We have an AWS Advanced Networking one free. We have a CCNA free. We've got a Certified Solution Architect Professional book, all free. And you can use all that free stuff and easily pass these exams.
So we're getting down to the end here, and I'm trying to find my banner that says, let us know where you're from. Apparently I deleted it. So I'm going to put this up here. Let us know where you are from. I think we got one more question to get to. Maybe another that just popped in. But we always like to know where everybody's from. So let us know where you're from in the chat box. And we'll see here. So Sakar asked, so can I use only pen and papers for cloud architecture without coding? Yes.
Yeah.
But not in this day and age, you wouldn't really use just pen and paper. You would use Microsoft
here's the
Word,
applications
Microsoft
I've used.
PowerPoint, email.
Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel, and a drawing program, either Draw.io, Microsoft Visio, or what's the other one, Lucidchart.
Right.
Or when you get really good, just to let you know, once you're a real architect and you're like an enterprise architect with experience, what you do is you make a napkin sketch on pen and paper, and you hand it to the graphic artist in your team, and they will make your designs in InDesign, and they'll look beautiful and elegant for you.
Yeah,
just like Elonzo does for me.
I even bought a whiteboard because I like to actually put my hands to the actual the board, basically trying to say 2 things at once. And I like to actually see and visualize that. And plus, with the whiteboard, you're able to erase and do. There you go. Exactly.
It's an entire wall back here.
You
can't really tell because it's been erased, but it's an entire
whiteboard. I had the
wall.
most beautiful whiteboard set up. I had it like an entire wall. But when I built this office, for people that don't know what my office looks like, I've got 2 studio monitor orders so I can hear it. I've got studio lighting. I've got 3 monitors. I've got 4 systems in here. A 24-core server that I use for EVE-NG for demos for networking. I've got a 64-core workstation that I normally use, and I'm using my Mac. I've got green screens behind me. I've got 6K video coders with encoders. My house is a science project. So I had to get rid of the white board.
Yeah. So we had another question that comes in. I'm trying to get people to put where they're from. So let us know where you're from. Kishore asked, I'll take this one because it falls into my realm.
I'm
As
so happy
Mike
to see
likes
him.
to point out, he says, "Do we need to solve data science and the algorithm problems for cloud interviews?"
No.
Not unless for some reason your interview goes completely off the rails and you end up presenting yourself as a data scientist or a cloud engineer or a DevOps person.
Yeah,
Then and that only happens because your resume or the way that you prepared for the interview is not adequate.
and
So
that's a
I'll
really
let
good
Mike
thing.
take it.
So I had a student. He was an Indian student, like an IIT graduate, super, super, super smart. Came to us. I mean, absolutely brilliant. I'm in Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, Florida, right now. But he was rock solid. He had basically taken a company. He built a company, sold it, had plenty of money, and then he decided he was going to become a cloud architect. He had all this developer stuff on his resume, and he says, like, Mike, I've gone to like 15 interviews, and all they asked me is about development. And I said, show me your resume. I've never been asked a development question on an architect interview in 25 years, and it was software developer, software developer, software developer. I said, okay. I said, can I have fun with your resume? And he says, Mike, it's been 10 interviews. Whatever you want to do, try it. I got rid of 2/3 of the certifications. I got rid of every mention for coding. I put in the business acumen, the leadership, the communication skills. He got a $300,000 job 4 weeks later, and he went, and it was based on his first interview. He just had a half a dozen interviews to get to that $300,000 job. But what it was, we had to brand him to show that he was an architect, to show that he wasn't a developer, he wasn't a data scientist. And this guy knew machine learning. So you're going to be asked about what's in your resume. If it's architecture, you're going to be asked architecture. If you put Terraform, you're going to be asked DevOps questions. If you put Python, you're going to be asked DevOps questions or cloud engineering questions. If you have architecture, you're going to be asked architecture questions. So make your resume the jobs you want.
Oh. And let's see, Corey here asks, I just started my MBA program.
Good.
Awesome. Amazing. Let's not ask the rest of the question.
Yeah, so I have an MBA. Chris has an MBA, and Alonzo has an MBA.
So the rest,
people
the
are
rest,
saying, Mike, should I do a master's in tech? I say never. And they say, why? I want to learn more. And I said, you're not going to learn anything in your master's in tech. Get an MBA, double your salary, triple your salary, become a chief technology officer, get an MBA. Yes,
yeah,
I love
so
the
the
MBA.
remainder of the question, am I wasting my time with obtaining that degree while pursuing an architect position or higher? No. Keep going that way.
You know, I get people hired without degrees as architects, but I got to tell you, having an MBA makes your architecture position look much better, and it helps you get the better architect roles.
Yes, it does. It'll set you apart from everywhere else.
Yeah,
Alonzo, I know you want to chime in here. So
No, I'm just saying you're going to have all of the architectural acumen, the soft skills, and everything else from this program, and then you're going to have an established business administrative master's degree to couple the two. Mm-hmm. And you're saying that you think you might be wasting your? Oh no! Yeah. Trust me, you won't.
Now it will be a waste of your time if you don't pay attention.
Yeah.
Because you need to pay attention.
A waste of time if you pay somebody to write your papers for you.
Right.
But if you go through and you put the effort and you assume it's critical to you, you combine the leadership training which we're giving you, which is more the elite leadership that you get from an executive coaching. You marry that with the training they give you in an MBA program, you're going to be in really good shape.
Yeah. So that was the last question to come in.
Really?
I think that. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
I think that's a great one to end on.
Yeah.
An emphatic yes.
I love things that are an emphatic yes.
Yeah. Yazine just popped in with another question.
Sure.
Is this program help for cloud security or just for cloud architect? Yes.
Yes. We teach to the level of the CISSP to every student because security is so there. I will tell you the last half a dozen students that got hired by the cloud providers, when our students actually did their interview, they stopped the interview. They're like, okay, you know more about security than we do. Let it go. So that's how much security we get into. Yes.
Yes. Yep. Again, another emphatic yes to end on there.
Lots of yes.
Yeah.
And let's just say cloud security is not WAF and Shield. I'll tell you that right now. That's not security.
Yeah.
Not at all. So
It's an element, but not much.
Before I let Mike and Alonzo close it out, I just wanted to thank everybody for allowing me the opportunity to try and keep these guys on task here.
MC
It's always it's always a fun experience.
I think it's fun.
It's great. I mean, they should have seen us before we clicked the go live.
Oh, yeah.
Woo! That might have been
fun.
a little too much fun. But yeah. So again, thank you guys and gals for joining us for another episode of Head in the Clouds with Mike and Alonzo. Make sure to keep coming back. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday night at 6:00 Eastern Time. As we move forward, we'll talk about different things each week. As you saw this week, we talked about the cloud competition between AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. We talked about some of the likes and concerns. I'm going to keep going with that. That's a nice way to put it. Some likes and concerns about the cloud and how it relates to traditional data environments. And then we talked. I think there was something else we talked. Oh, we heard about Alonzo's experience on how he got to where he is today, and then we had a great time answering some of your questions. So again, every Tuesday at 6:00 Eastern Time, we'll be here for you guys and gals. Next week, we're gonna elaborate a little bit on OpenStack and Nutanix and how they're utilized in certain deployments and environments. And we'll continue to take any suggestions that you may have. If you want to send us some suggestions about topics to talk about, make sure you send them to admin@gocloudcareers.net. In addition to our Tuesdays, we will begin having some special guests on a special Friday episode. We will try to do once a week. It may, depending on scheduling availability, it may not be every week, but on Fridays, we're going to be having special guests and not necessarily cloud-related guests.
No, they may
from
be
different. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
They may be CEOs. They may be Navy SEALs. Whatever we have on our show is going to be someone that's going to have lessons for you that is going to change your life and change your professional development.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of CEOs already lined up. We've got some special operations warriors, at least one coming very soon. And we've got a lot of things to build your community and build your career. Look, when I talked about questions and concerns about the cloud, I love the cloud. And if I say there's performance differences, it's not that I don't think we should go to the cloud, but you're architects, or at least many of you are. And if you're going to talk to the CIO at your client, you have to know what works better and faster. You can't just believe what's in certification because the customer won't hire you that way.
Right.
So I'm just trying to give you the knowledge and the armor. So when you speak to those executives at the customer with your architecture and they say, hey, my team says cloud disk performance isn't as good. What are you going to do about it? You're not blindsided. Hey, block storage is fast. No, block storage is slow. But block storage is the fastest option in the cloud. So when you know, you're an architect. And as an architect, you will be able to give the strategic advice to make your companies better. So as architects, what do? We constantly learn. We try and get better every day. Maybe it's AWS today. Maybe it's Azure next week. Maybe there's a new technology that replaces all of it. What do we have to do? Solve customer problems, make our customers more profitable, improve our customers' business. And as long as we do that, if you're working on routers one day like me, and the next day it's servers, it's all the same. It's just tech. The tech is not the instrument what we do. We use the tech as a tool. We're just darn good at using tech to make businesses better.
Yep. Alonzo, you're on mute if you want to throw in any last words here. Before you do, I'm going to remind everybody that we are currently doing a 30% special discount for all of our programs and trainings at gocloudcareers.com. That 30% discount is applicable on all full payments and payment plans on our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, our Tech Career Accelerator Program, our Tech Interview Mastery Program. So that discount will be ongoing through April 14th in celebration of our 1-year anniversary of our first group program. So make sure to take advantage of that. The coupon code will be GoCloud1 at our website, gocloudcareers.com. So
Nice.
Elonzo, any last words?
I am glad again to be here again to just discuss and have fun with my guys, Chris and Mike. And I'm just looking forward to meeting and conversing with anyone. You can definitely find me on Slack so that we can just have more fun and just enjoy each other and just grow in the community. And we will see you all next week.
Yep. All right, Mike, you want to take us home?
Everyone, I'm so grateful that you're all here. You know, for me, and I know for Chris, and I know for Elonzo, it's a privilege to be coming at you, a privilege to be having conversations with you, and we do it to make sure you have the best career. So we may joke, we may laugh, but we're pragmatic people because we've been architects, we've been business leaders for decades, and we want to make sure that you are too. You're the future. I mean, look, I've been designing architecture for 25 plus years. At some point, I'm going to go to Jamaica and do Ashtanga yoga on the beach every single day of the week. And that's it. But I can't do that until all you guys are working as cloud architects. And guess what? We're going to have other cloud training programs coming real soon for other cloud careers that no matter what you want to do, where you're at in the world, you'll have the most elite cloud careers. All of our training is worth about $50,000 per program, but we offer it for a single day's pay because we're all about giving you the best careers. And go get hired. Whether you're using our free stuff, paid stuff, I don't care. I just want you hired. So come around, stick around. If you need something, if you want more free ebooks, heck, we might write one on Azure coming very soon. But, you know, we're thinking about it. So tell us what you need. When I get you cloud hired or cloud promoted.
Yep.
Even better.
Which happened today, twice.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys. Thanks, everybody. I enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing everyone again next week.
Me too.
Take care, guys and gals.